Greetings, paper demons. Today I'm going to talk about why no one will hire you as a professional artist. I'm going to talk about some of the main problems that I have observed artists facing when they've applied for artist positions and weren't quite qualified to get the position, or some things that I've heard artists complain about that they struggle with in their journeys to become professional artists. So if you want to become a professional artist but have not yet landed that first entry-level job, this video is for you. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Susie Sahim, but I go by Bogus Red online. I run an online art community called Paper Demon, and I used to do art professionally for Google. I was also involved in hiring artists for Google, reviewing portfolios and doing interviews, as well as hiring artists for my own projects. So I have some experience from both the perspective of an artist applying for jobs as well as the perspective of being the person hiring other artists to do a job. I also have ADHD. A lot of my videos I talk about art from a neurodiverse perspective, and this video is going to be no different. I am going to be talking about some techniques to help artists get that first entry-level pro artist job, and some tips specifically for those who are neurodiverse. While my neurodiversity is specifically from the perspective of a person with ADHD, I do think that some of these traits are applicable across other forms of neurodiversity, so take from it what you will. One of the things that I've heard artists complain about is they want to do art professionally, but they are having trouble getting hired. How do I get hired if I have no experience, is what they ask. And that's a great question that I'm going to answer. I'm going to talk about ways to get that experience without having to actually have landed a job yet. I'm also going to talk a lot about something called project-based learning and how that can help you with your skills development and your experience development. Okay, so let's jump into it. The number one thing that you'll need to do is to develop your skills. Hopefully this is an obvious one, but one thing that may not be so obvious is that there are a particular subset of art skills that you will need to develop. There's certain fundamentals of drawing that you'll need to know for most illustration or animation positions. Of course, there are many different types of art jobs out there that aren't specifically illustration or animation that you may be able to get away with not knowing the fundamentals. But for most types of professional illustration or animation jobs, there's a certain set of skills that you have to demonstrate in order to get hired. So in particular, things like figure drawing. You have to know how to draw the human figure, understand anatomy, understand gesture. You'll also need to understand how to draw three-dimensional forms, like drawing the human figure and making it feel more three-dimensional, shading, color, composition, all these things. In addition to drawing the human figure, you're going to need to understand how to draw backgrounds. For some jobs, like if you're going into like something like character design, you're probably not going to need to do any background art. But typically for that first entry-level job, you're expected to have a certain breadth of skills. You're not usually going into a specialized role like a character designer role. Typically, the more specialized roles are going to go to people who have many more years of experience. They aren't going to go to entry-level positions or entry-level applicants. So it is important that you build the skills needed to have a good versatility at first. One tip related to this in terms of skills development is it can be difficult to know where you need to focus your time. You may not realize that maybe your figure drawing is good, but your background design is not good. So it can be really helpful when you do apply for a job, if you don't get it, to ask the hiring manager or whoever is your contact if you could get feedback from them. If they have any feedback on your portfolio in terms of what you could work on, what areas they saw as weakness that you need to invest more time in skills development on. You can also reach out to someone on Twitter or on LinkedIn who is a professional doing the type of job that you want to do and ask them to review your portfolio and give you feedback. They could probably tell you really directly what types of things they expect to see in a portfolio for the particular job you want to apply for, as well as what areas you may need to spend some more time focusing on. So you know now that there's a certain set of skills that you're going to need in order to get hired professionally, but how do you actually acquire those skills? There's different ways you can go about this, and certainly you can use a combination of different strategies. You could, of course, study at a university, study animation, illustration, art, whatever, and that provides a lot of structure and has its own benefits, especially if you hear good reviews about a particular school. It can be very beneficial, but it's also pretty expensive and can take a long time to get through a program like that. I definitely support people learning online. There's a lot of great courses online, really skilled professional illustrators who have worked in the animation and illustration and gaming industries. So I definitely recommend that as a much cheaper, more affordable option. Of course, these options each have their pros and cons. I also have a third option, which I think is really good complementary, which I'm going to talk about later in this video. By the way, if you do need some help with composition or environment design, I do have a video that talks more about composition in depth. There's a link to that in the upper right corner of your screen. Tip number 2 is to have an online portfolio. You'd be surprised, I have actually interviewed candidates who did not have a portfolio put together. So this may be an obvious one. You may already have a portfolio put together, but in case it isn't, I'm going to cover that basic step for you. So your portfolio, as I talked about in the first tip, you need to develop your skills. In this second tip, it's all about demonstrating that you have those skills. So you want to put together a portfolio that shows a variety of pieces, finished pieces, sketches. You want to include figure drawing. You'll want to include pieces that demonstrate your ability to draw backgrounds, your ability to draw people, characters, design environments, all those sorts of things that will demonstrate your versatility as an artist. Now, one thing that may not be obvious is that it actually is really helpful to include concept sketches in your portfolio. One of the things that I tend to look for when I'm hiring an artist is I want to have an understanding of how creative the artist is, what kinds of ideas they come up with, and when they are coming up with ideas for a background or ideas for a character or whatever, it's really helpful to see those early concept sketches to kind of see what the artist's thought process is. So definitely include thumbnail sketches, rough sketches for any sort of project where you were coming up with different ideas. Okay, tip number 3, be proactive. So one of the things that I've heard artists complain about is like, hey, I need experience to get this job, but how do I get experience if I can't get a job? It's kind of a chicken and egg problem. But there is a solution to this, and this is to be proactive and create your own opportunities. Basically, to hire yourself to either collaborate with someone else on a project or come up with your own project where you can use it both for gaining experience as well as for skills development. One of the great things about starting your own project is it demonstrates that you are a proactive person and have some leadership skills, especially if you are working with other people or leading other people. It also helps to demonstrate planning skills, and it demonstrates that you're a self-starter. For me in particular, I think one of the reasons why I got hired at Google is because I had started my own web development project and had worked on it for many years. And not only did I learn a ton from that project, I demonstrated that, hey, I can start something and I can keep it going, and I'm proactive. And there's a lot of companies out there that really value a person who can see a problem or have an idea and actually start it and complete it. And the great thing about this is you absolutely can put this on your resume. So just because someone didn't hire you to do this project, you absolutely can put it on your resume as experience, because it counts, because actually starting your own project is going to teach you a lot of things that you're not going to learn in a traditional learning environment. So some examples of things that you can do along this vein are start a comic, or start an animated series, or create your own game, maybe a mobile game or something. Anything along those lines, or a little animated film or something like that can be really beneficial in gaining you that experience and also giving you more things to put in your portfolio. Tip number 4 is to learn through project-based learning. This is closely related to tip number 3, which is to hire yourself and start your own project. But here I want to focus on the learning benefits of starting your own project, particularly for people with ADHD or who may be neurodiverse. But in particular, ADHDers are better at project-based learning. It can be difficult to take a class and learn a skill that you don't really understand how that skill actually is going to apply to your life or to what you want to accomplish. It can be really difficult to stick to the class, to learn what you're supposed to learn, and to apply it to your life. It's just can be very frustrating. Whereas if you take a project-based learning approach, you're more motivated to learn the skill that you are learning because you are learning it right at the time that you need it. So for example, if you started an animation project and you've not really animated much before, or you have a particular scene where you have a character walking from one side of the screen to the other, you're going to have to learn how to animate a walk cycle. And you're learning it right at the time when you need it, and it can apply to a project that you have passion and drive to complete. This is also referred to as just-in-time learning. Basically what that means is as you are working on your project and you are getting to a certain step that requires a skill you don't yet have, you are investing time in taking a class or watching some videos online or reading some books or whatever to acquire that specific skill that's going to help you to achieve that next step in your project. And of course, at the end of this, whatever you develop for this project can be used in your online portfolio and be put as experience on your resume. Tip number 5 is to collaborate. This is again related to number 3 and number 4 about being proactive and doing project-based learning. It really helps a lot if you are collaborating with other people on whatever project you decide to do. And one of the reasons why this is particularly impressive to someone who may be hiring is it demonstrates that you have the ability to work with others on a team. Because not only are they going to be looking for if you have the necessary skills and the necessary experience, they're also looking to see, are you someone who they can tolerate working with? And if you've succeeded in accomplishing something amongst a team in the past, that is a really good signal that you're probably going to do really well being hired within a company. Another reason why I think this is particularly beneficial for those who have ADHD or any motivational challenges is when you're working in a team, you can feed off of each other's energy and help keep the project momentum going. If you start a project on your own, it can be really hard to stick with it and keep it going and complete it. As those of us with ADHD know, we often start a lot of projects and don't finish them. So collaborating with other creators, especially those who may be in a similar boat to you, who are also trying to build their experience, it's a win-win. Everyone benefits. Okay, so I covered the 5 tips, but there's a few things I just want to mention. I just want to acknowledge that a lot of what I'm saying here involves doing studying and additional work outside of what your normal day job might be or what your current learning might be. Like if you're studying at a university or taking classes online and I'm also saying to start a project, like that's a lot of work. And I do want to acknowledge for a moment, yes, that is a lot of work. And it can be particularly challenging for people who might be a parent or a caregiver of some kind. You know, it can be hard to find the time to take on additional projects. You may have to kind of consider this as something that you do after you're taking your classes and see this as like an extension of your education. So for example, like you may take some courses at a university and then plan that the next year after that is going to be spent on some sort of project. Or you can lighten your class load, take less classes so that you have time for fun projects that can help you to gain that experience. This is mostly what I did. I took a lighter class load, mostly because I have ADHD and could not handle the same class load that my peers could handle. It took me 6 years to graduate with a 4-year degree. I'm not the only one that took that long, but the benefit of that is I did have some time to work on my own projects that I was passionate about that also happened to give me really valuable experience that I could put on my resume and that I could put in my portfolio. Okay, so let's recap really quick. Number 1 is to develop your skills. Number 2 is to demonstrate your skills in a portfolio. Number 3 is to be proactive and start your own project. Basically, hire yourself. Number 4 is to learn through project-based learning. And number 5 is to collaborate. I hope you found this video useful. Please let me know in the comments below what kind of professional art job you're looking to get hired into in the future. And if you're an artist struggling with motivation, you may want to check out the Paper Demon art role-playing game. It's an art RPG where you draw your own original character, fulfilling various prompts, and earn virtual currency and virtual items. The game is totally free and is a lot of fun, so check it out. There's a link for that in the description below. We try hard to cultivate a safe space for the neurodiverse arts community, so if you're looking for a safe place to get encouragement with your artwork, check us out. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!